Imagine finding out the government is reading your text messages just because you talked to someone in another country.
I mean, it sounds like the opening of a paranoid spy thriller, right?
Yeah.
But it is a very real, very explosive debate happening right now.
Yeah, we are jumping straight into a massive controversy for today's deep dive. So, conservative commentator Tucker Carlson recently claimed the CIA monitored his private text messages.
Right.
He alleges he was texting with Iranian officials right before the recent U.S. and Israel strikes on Iran. And Carlson says the government wants to frame him as a foreign agent, basically to silence his opposition to the war.
And the story actually gets wilder from there. So, a review by the National Security Agency, the NSA, they claim they didn't directly target Carlson for surveillance. They say his name was unmasked.
Wait, hold on. Let's pause there, because unmasking is one of those, Washington buzzwords that sounds incredibly shady. What does that actually mean mechanically?
Yeah, it's a great question. Essentially, American intelligence was eavesdropping on a foreign target, maybe an Iranian official. When they transcribed that intercepted text thread, they noticed the foreign target is talking to an American.
Right.
So, by law, the NSA hides or masks the identity of everyday Americans in those reports just to protect their privacy. You just show up as U.S. person 1.
Oh, okay.
But if government officials feel they need to know who that American is to fully grasp the intelligence threat, they can officially request to unmask the name. And the NSA says that is exactly what happened here. Carlson's name just popped up in someone else's monitored conversation.
Wow. And meanwhile, political figures are absolutely clashing over this. You've got activist Laura Loomer celebrating the news, saying she wants him locked up.
Yeah, she even took credit for reporting him to the DOJ.
Exactly. And then on the other side, commentator Candace Owens is fiercely defending him, declaring that we ride at dawn. And if that wasn't enough, there are rumors flying around that former President Trump used Carlson to secretly deceive Iranian leader Khamenei during Oval Office meetings.
It is a total media circus right now, a complete firestorm.
Yeah.
But beneath all this yelling, there is a fundamental legal and constitutional issue. It's not just about one media personality. It's about a very specific law.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We are unpacking the 1938 law sitting at the absolute center of this storm. It's called the Foreign Agents Registration Act, or FARA.
Right.
We've got a really tall stack of sources today. We are looking at legal briefs from the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press, some brand new Department of Justice memos, and news reports tracking the whole Carlson controversy. We really want to explore where national security collides with the First Amendment.
But before we get into the mechanics, we should probably give a quick heads up to you, the listener. The sources we are pulling from today contain some highly charged political opinions.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we are seeing fierce viewpoints from both the left and the right.
And we need to make it crystal clear that we are not taking a side here. We aren't endorsing any of these viewpoints. We are just impartially unpacking the facts and the arguments in these documents to help you understand the legal machinery underneath the headlines.
The machinery is definitely what matters. To understand how a media figure could just suddenly be accused of being a spy, we first have to crack open this rulebook.
Right. So, FARA, the Foreign Agents Registration Act. When I hear that, I immediately picture, like, Jason Bourne. But this law is incredibly old, isn't it?
It is. It goes all the way back to 1938. And Congress originally built FARA for a very specific wartime purpose, which was combating Nazi propaganda.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, leading up to World War II, the government wanted to force people who were spreading foreign propaganda on U.S. soil to register themselves. The logic was just basic transparency. The public deserved to know if the guy handing out pamphlets on the corner was secretly on the payroll of a hostile foreign power.
That makes total sense for 1938. But the law didn't just stay frozen in the 30s, right?
Yeah, not at all. Fast forward to 1966, and Congress completely overhauls it. They shifted the focus away from wartime propagandists and moved toward the gray flannel suit crowd.
The lobbyists.
Exactly. They wanted to rein in professional lobbyists, lawyers, public relations firms, people trying to secretly influence U.S. policies or public opinion for wealthy foreign clients.
Okay, let's unpack this. If I'm a lobbyist taking $1 million from a foreign government to push a trade deal, I have to register.
Right?
It sounds like AIR is supposed to act like a mandatory sponsorship patch on a NASCAR driver. If a foreign country is paying you to drive their message, you have to wear their logo so everyone knows who's backing you.
That is a brilliant analogy. But the actual text of the law goes way beyond just paid lobbyists. Under FARA, a foreign agent is legally defined as someone acting at the order, request, direction, or control of a foreign principal.
Wait, request. That is a remarkably loose word. And what exactly is a foreign principal? Is that just a foreign government?
No, and that's the wild part. The definition literally covers anyone overseas. It could be a foreign government, sure, but it could also be a private business in Mexico, a nonprofit in Europe, or, as one legal expert in our sources jokingly put it, your grandmother in Canada.
Literally anyone outside the U.S. borders.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone. So if someone outside the U.S. requests that I do something here and I do it, I'm suddenly a foreign agent. What is the actual penalty if I don't fill out the registration paperwork?
If the DOJ prove you willfully violate the rules, you can face up to 5 years in federal prison.
5 years. Just for talking to the wrong person and missing a form. But here is what really stands out in the statistics from our research. For a long time, this law was basically a paper tiger.
Oh, completely.
Between 1966 and 2015, the government only brought 7 criminal prosecutions, 7 cases in almost 50 years.
It was incredibly rare. For decades, if the DOJ thought you were an unregistered lobbyist, they usually just mailed you a polite letter asking you to update your paperwork. It was an administrative headache, not a felony.
Right.
But that entire philosophy flipped upside down in 2016.
What caused the flip?
Well, the Inspector General released this highly critical report slamming the DOJ for being way too lax on foreign influence. Combine that with massive geopolitical shifts like rising tensions with Russia and China, fears of election interference, and suddenly the DOJ made FARA a major enforcement priority.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they started launching aggressive criminal investigations, even for technical violations.
Which brings us back to that dangerous word, request. Since request is such a loose word, where is the actual line between a paid lobbyist wearing that NASCAR patch and just a regular person having a conversation?
The terrifying reality is that the line is blurry by design.
Yeah.
Funding alone doesn't actually make you an agent. Historical court rulings show that getting money from a foreign source doesn't automatically trigger FRA as long as you maintain total independence.
Okay.
The real tripwire is control. You have to be acting at their direction.
But proving you aren't under their control is the tricky part, right? Because our sources mention a wild case from 2020 involving the National Wildlife Federation.
Oh, yes. That case is fascinating.
They received environmental grants linked to specific conservation programs, and the government ordered them to register as foreign agents because taking the money and executing the work fell under fulfilling a request.
And because the law sweeps so broadly, it accidentally catches people who have nothing to do with lobbying, which leads us directly into the massive panic happening right now in the journalism world.
Right, because apparatus is so vaguely written, it accidentally threatens the core of a free press. Let's look at how routine journalism is colliding with this law.
Yeah, we have a very revealing legal brief from the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press. They filed it in a high-profile case called United States v. Sue My Terry. And they are warning that FAFA could literally criminalize standard journalism.
The Sue My Terry case is wild. She's accused of meeting a South Korean official for dinner, taking talking points from them, texting the points to herself, and then publishing articles based on those themes.
And the government's indictment frames it like a spy novel. They call the foreign official her handler, who dictated the points to her.
Wow.
But the Reporters Committee pushes back hard. They argue that cultivating foreign sources, asking questions, and publishing articles based on those answers, that's literally just journalism. It's what reporters do every day.
I mean, journalists survive on sources, and our research has incredible examples of this. Think about the New York Times reporting on China using leaked documents from a source inside the Chinese establishment.
Exactly. Under a strict reading of TAC, if a journalist takes a document from a Chinese official and publishes it, the government could argue they acted at the request of a foreign principal.
Or the Panama Papers leak. An anonymous source leaked a mountain of documents to a German newspaper, who shared it with U.S. journalists. Under FAC, taking a tip from a foreigner and publishing it could trigger a criminal charge.
Well, the writers of the law did attempt to offer a shield. There's something called the media exemption. It says domestic press is exempt from registering, provided they are engaging in bona fide news activities.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The exemption only applies if the news organization is at least 80% owned by U.S. citizens. Why isn't that exemption enough to
Imagine
protect our
finding out
news?
your electric
Because
bill
in
is
today's
secretly funding the
globalized
government's
economy,
massive
passing
spending
that
addiction.
80%
It
test
is
is
a pretty
incredibly
shocking
difficult.
realization when you actually
Many
look
modern
at the
media
math.
companies
Right.
have international
Well,
backing.
imagine for a second
The brief
that you have a
points out
savings
that
account.
Fortune magazine was bought by a
And,
Thai businessman,
you
and
swore to your
Politico was
family,
acquired by
hand
a
over
German
heart,
publishing giant.
that
So
this
if your
money was
newspaper's
strictly for
ownership
fixing a
doesn't
leaking
pass that
roof.
80%
You
American
said,
bloodline test,
if we don't
you
fix
don't
this
get the
roof,
exemption.
the house is going to
And
collapse.
the implications
It's
are
an
severe when you
existential
look at the
crisis for the
global
house.
context.
Exactly. It's the
Save
save
the
the
house
house laws
fund.
are used
But
aggressively
then,
around
your
the
car
world.
breaks down.
In Russia,
You
it's
spend a
labeled
little
as
too much
tied
on
to Cold
groceries.
War
You got
espionage
bills
and
piling
used to
up.
crush
So what do?
independent
You raid the
NGOs.
roof
Right.
fund.
And in Georgia,
You
a
take that
similar
money,
law
pay off your
sparked
credit
massive
cards, and
protests
tell your
recently.
family, hey, don't worry,
People
we'll fix
immediately
the roof
recognized
later.
it as a
Right.
tool to
And
silence
in
the
this
free press.
scenario,
Because
roof
if
is the
journalists
planet,
are forced to
or at least
register as foreign
Maryland's climate
agents,
goals.
no one will trust
And the
them.
car is a
And
massive,
sources will be far too
self-inflicted
terrified to speak.
$1.5
But wait,
billion
even if a company is
state budget
80%
deficit.
American,
A completely avoidable
the
deficit, I
exemption
might add.
only protects
Welcome to
bona
the deep
fide news,
dive.
right?
Yes.
Today we're
And the
exploring a
statute
classic
leaves
case
the
of
definition of
fiscal
bona
sleight
fide
of hand
in
coming
coming
out
out
of
of
Annapolis.
Annapolis.
The government gets
We
to
are looking
decide
at
what
the
counts as
Strategic
real
Energy
journalism.
Investment Fund,
That the mechanism,
the SAFE.
and it opens the door
It's
to
a huge pot of
selective,
money meant to save the environment,
enforcement
but it's
against
turning into a
journalists
hidden
they
tax
don't like,
on every
which
single
brings us
person
right back
paying
to
an
Tucker
electric
Carlson.
bill in Maryland.
He's claiming this is
It
exactly
really
what's
is.
happening
It's
to
become
him,
the
that
center
they
of
are
a huge
weaponizing his
political
text
fight.
messages to
You've
frame
got a
him.
Democratic
Right. Whether
governor,
his specific
frustrated
claims are true or
environmentalists
not,
making some
his
very awkward
situation highlights the
compromises,
legal fear.
and conservative critics
Because of
who
this
are rightly
exact fear
calling
of
this whole thing
overreach,
a shell
the
game.
Department
A
of
shell
Justice
game.
has actually just
And
slammed
when you
the
look at
brakes
the
on
documents we
FARA
have today,
prosecutions.
reports,
Yes, let's talk about the
budget
DOJ's
proposals,
massive
critiques from
pivot
Senate
here.
Republicans,
We have a client
it is
alert
really hard
detailing
to
a brand
unsee
new
it.
memo
Our mission
from
for this
Attorney
deep dive
General
is
Pam
simple.
Bondi.
Follow the money.
Within hours
Always
of taking
follow the
office,
money.
We are
she
going to
ordered
see how a
prosecutors to
fund
stop
designed to
pursuing
fight
criminal
climate
FARA
change
cases.
is being used
With
to plug
one
holes in
major
the state
exception.
budget. And we'll
They
dig
will
into the
only
argument
pursue
that this
cases
isn't
that
found money at
involve
all.
conduct
This is
similar
essentially a
to more
backdoor
traditional
tax on
espionage
families.
by
Let's
foreign
get right
government
into
actors.
it.
The
So
Strategic
the
Energy
DOJ is
Investment
pivoting
Fund
away
sounds very
from prison
official,
time for
very
technical
important.
violations
What does it actually
and moving
do?
towards civil
on
enforcement and
paper,
regulatory
it is
guidance.
the state's green
Yes,
piggy
but
bank.
there is a
The SIF
staggering
is
catch
managed
here.
by the
What's the
Maryland
catch?
Energy
VERY
Administration.
doesn't actually
Its
have
whole
civil
stated
penalties
purpose
for
is to
past
reduce
violations. You
energy
can't just
bills,
pay a fine.
cut waste,
The
and
only civil
fund
remedy
renewable
is an
energy.
injunction to
Like
stop
solar panels and
ongoing
efficiency
violations.
So if
Exactly.
you broke the rules
But
in the
here is
past,
the
but
real
you
aha
stopped,
moment of this
there's no
story.
punishment.
Exactly. Therefore,
Where does the
agents
money
who broke the rules in
actually
the past
come from?
might face
Because
absolutely
they aren't
no
just
punishment at
taxing
all
you
under this
directly
new
for
policy.
it. Wow.
No, and that's
So
why politicians
what does this
absolutely
all
love
mean
it. It
for
feels
someone
free.
like Tucker
So
Carlson?
about 40%
if the
comes from
DOJ is
regional
rolling back
carbon
criminal
auctions.
charges to only
But the
target
big chunk, the
traditional
one growing like
espionage
crazy,
like
comes with
sneaking
something called
microfilm in a
alternative
hollow
compliance
coin,
payments,
isn't Carlson
or
totally off the hook
ACPs.
for which is just a sending fancy text government messages? term
You
for
would
a
think
fine?
so, but
Right.
we have to
It's a fine
separate
for failure.
policy from
Let me
law.
break it
The
down.
policy has
Maryland
changed,
law
but the
forces
actual
utility
law
companies
hasn't
to buy
changed
a
a
certain
single
amount of
punctuation
green
mark.
energy.
The
They have to prove they're
statutory
using
registration
renewables.
requirements
But they
are
can't find that
completely
green energy, or if it's
unchanged.
just way too expensive on the
And
market.
traditional
Usually is.
espionage
Yeah, the state
isn't
gives them an
strictly
escape
defined.
hatch. The
It's
utility
entirely
can
at the
just pay a
discretion of the
fee
Attorney
directly to
General.
the state Meaning
instead.
anyone
That fee is the
communicating with foreign
ACP.
officials remains in
here's
a
the kicker.
legal gray area.
Utilities
Exactly.
are increasingly
Carlson's situation
just
just
paying the
highlights
fine
the
because it's
escalating
cheaper than
tension
actually
between
buying
national
the
security
green energy.
and press
so
freedom,
the climate
especially
fund is
during
getting
times of conflict.
incredibly
It's
rich.
incredible. Let's summarize this journey for you, the listener. We have unpacked how in 1938 anti-propaganda law evolved into this massive,
The government made the
dragnet.
mandate so aggressive.
We saw
and the
how
market
the
is so
DOJ is
distorted
trying to
that
rein it
power
in right
companies are
now,
just writing
and
checks
how
to
the
the
Tucker
state
Carlson
instead of going
controversy
green.
serves
And the
as a
stats on this
real-time
are just
stress test of
staggering.
these rules.
They are.
And this is why you
In
should care.
2022,
The application
this
of this
revenue
law
was
dictates whether
$77
journalists are free to gather
By
the information you rely
2025,
on,
it jumped to
or if they have to operate in fear of being
$365
labeled a foreign
million.
spy
Wow.
just for asking
From
questions.
77
It really
million
is
to
about your right to know,
365
which
million
leaves
in
us with a
3 years.
final
so now the
lingering
state has
question
this
to ponder on your
massive
own. If
accidental
the
pot of
only thing
gold,
protecting
it's
journalists
supposedly
from
for
being
green
criminally
projects.
charged as foreign
But remember, that
agents
money didn't just
is the
fall out of the
temporary
sky. The
discretion
utility
of
companies
whichever
paid those
attorney general
funds.
happens to be in
And
power?
do you think those massive
Are we just
corporations
one
just eat that
administration
cost
away
out
from
of
the
the goodness
press
of their hearts?
effectively needing
Oh,
a government
absolutely not.
license
They
to
pass
speak?
every single penny of that onto the customer.
Exactly. It shows up right on your electric bill. So